And welcome to the No Show Sportscast first pitch tip-off kickoff face-off here for you on Mondays and Fridays. We are approaching the Super Bowl, but most importantly, we've got a huge trade as well in the NHL. It's NHL All-Star Weekend. The Pro Bowl will be next weekend, so the NFL is wrapping up with those two activities. But first, we've got NHL action happening. We've got the All-Star Game. We've got the skills competition, lots of action happening. But the Vancouver Canucks have decided to make a trade. They are deciding to move in a different direction. The young and the youthful and the restless at heart. Swapping them in, the young guys, prospects, multiples. Kuzmenko, a guy who scored 39 goals last year for the Canucks. He unfortunately, he can't do it again. And if he ever will return to the guy that we saw him last season, it's going to be with another team because he gets traded to the Calgary Flames for Elias Lindholm, a guy who's a bona fide star in the league. He has proven himself multiple years in Calgary. We saw him with the Carolina Hurricanes. He came over in a deal with Noah Hannafin multiple years ago. And immediately I saw that with Elias Lindholm, it was a chemistry issue. That was something that he didn't have in the Carolina Hurricanes organization that we saw him display in Calgary, because basically if you want to make an impression on franchise, or at least prove yourself that you're a useful guy to the public, to the fans, then you got to prove yourself as someone that's going to be every single year on fantasy hockey leagues on those teams. But if you're a guy who's going to be making a lot of money, then you got to be proving yourself to the organization in real time. So there's those comparisons. But the guy has turned into someone who can put up a lot of goals, a lot of points, and make his teammates better around him. He could be on the first power play unit. He could be on the second. He'll probably find himself on the first sometimes. Right now, it looks like Pius Suter is kind of that utility guy. We saw him on the first power play unit a couple times. And he could definitely just man the second unit as well. That's most likely his outcome, because there's just way too much room now on this first line. But he'll end up on the second line, as he probably should. I don't know. Like I mentioned, this is definitely going to be a chemistry issue. And we see a lot of people get either better or get worse when they go to the Flames. So I don't know if exactly coming over from Calgary that makes you battle tested. But the guy was certainly an excellent addition. I don't think they gave up too much for him, because what they gave up, basically, they gave up a player who can produce for them now, and they gave up players they're choosing not to find out if they could produce for them. Andrei Kuzmenko, an excellent player. He had an up-and-down season. Didn't really know where he was going to be established in the team, because there was way too much that Rick Tocchet did not want to interrupt. He didn't want to disturb the flow and the peace that he was getting from the first line, from the first power play unit, from the defensive core, from them contributing to the power play as well. Not to mention the third line of Bluger and Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua. So here we got a guy who's going to definitely be on that second line. He is certainly a guy who can make a difference. The veteran presence that he brings is something that they wanted, but they just couldn't get from Kuzmenko. They couldn't get a whole lot from this guy. So unfortunately, he had to be the sacrificial lamb, along with a couple of prospects. I don't like the trade of a first-round pick, because that on top of all of this is basically five guys for one Lindholm, and that first overall pick is going to be very important. But you could sandwich it into thinking that, okay, the Canucks are going to finish top 5. That one player is going to turn out to be just as good as a second-round pick. That looks like the situation. Not to mention how Lindholm holds just under $5 million on the cap, and he's going to be unrestricted free agent. So they're already looking this at alone. They're getting onto it fairly quickly, because they traded for him on January 31st. They were thinking ahead, okay, we got to get as much as we can out of an excellent rental like this guy's going to be. And no extension has been solidified for him. So a lot could definitely happen in a good way for the Canucks, especially if they get a lot from him. But he's most likely going to be wanting to get a lot of more money somewhere else. So there's that. It's going to be very contentious, but they've got to maximize what they can get out of him. And it's easy to just look at this and think that the Canucks they're going all in, okay? Kuzmenko in and out of the lineup. All right, now we got a bona fide second liner who can really make a difference. And this shows, I think, this is now the Canucks are changing their identity again. They're going from the team that had an excellent start. They are deciding that we have outlived, we have overstayed the welcome, and we are no longer a team that just had a good start. The Canucks are now a team that are contending for the Stanley Cup. They are putting the league on notice, suggesting that we are contenders now. Look at how good we are, and we just got better. That's who we are. We're not like the Detroit Lions, okay? We are a team that is actually going to be there at the very end, and that our opponents are the underdogs, okay? That's who we are. And that isn't just built off of the amazing start that they had, because we have seen this too consistently now, because we are over 50 games into the season, because all of the top players are chasing individual stats. Quinn Hughes is expected. He's going to end up winning the Norris at this rate. There's just nobody else. Perhaps maybe there's going to be a little bit of that, a little bit of luck involved. But either way, I mean, we are seeing a lot of excellent hockey being played here in Vancouver. They get the All-Star break coming in. It's gonna be very, very nice and much deserved. You know, we can't always say that the Canucks deserved an All-Star break here. They should be grinding away. They should be practicing, getting better, trying to up the ante, because they hadn't been able to really do anything like that. They hadn't been able to show anything. It always ended up happening at the second half of the season that the Canucks would turn it on, like when they hired Boudreau 2 seasons ago. And even last year, they were just mid, super mid. When they added Tocchet, it's like their trade deadline had been, let's see, what kind of coach are we going to add here? What kind of coach are we going to make at the trade deadline? Forget adding players. Let's just try and add somebody else. Like a coach. We're going to sign a guy. We're going to trade. We're going to try to acquire a guy who's going to wear a suit on when the puck drops, rather than suit up and put on the skates. So all of that is happening. All of that All-Star weekend crap, you know, whatever. It's great. It's fun. Sure. Some shameless fan service. Let's do it. We've also got more shameless fan service in the NBA, because looks like Joel Embiid, he might not be the MVP now, because not only is he going for an MRI, looks like he's going to be out indefinitely. He's got a big knee problem, a big issue that he sustained against the Warriors, but the Sixers also got fined $75,000 for him not accurately being listed on their injury report. Now, injuries, we've talked about this extensively. The injuries in the NBA are a complete fugazi. No one really knows who's injured and who's not. No one really knows if they're only on the list because they just don't want to. There's a whole lot of autonomy if you're an NBA player nowadays. And the product, like the Celtics and the Lakers game on Thursday afternoon, that's the kind of product that we're getting. The NBA is becoming more and more unwatchable, and I don't want Joel Embiid to be the face of the NBA, because he's going to complain about how he's not going to win MVP this year because he's only played 34 games, and he has to play another 31 more, but he's probably going to miss, I don't know. There's a lot of math involved, and the guy's, he has a tendency to overreact. He has a tendency to be a clown. He has a tendency to ask for more than he's given. He acts as if the entire world is a Wells Fargo Center. And the year that 2 seasons ago when he didn't win MVP, he said, I don't know what more I have to do to win this. I don't know what more I have to do. I don't know. It's impossible to win MVP, basically. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, hey, you won the regular season award, which is so important. It's so coveted. And the reality is, the guy, he had a 70-point game, which is a huge, that's a big deal, okay? An excellent performance, 70 points, and he was averaging over 10 rebounds and 30 points a game for a nice little streak there. But in reality, you can't just disappear for the rest of the season. You've only played 34 games, okay? Did you know Matt Olson played 162 games for the Braves last year? He had 55 home runs. You can't just hit a bunch of home runs or make a bunch of buckets, have a 70-point game, average 40 for a month, get hot at the right time and say, I'm the best in the league, I'm the best in the world. Okay? Outside of Wells Fargo Center, we don't believe that, Joel. Okay? In reality, you have to get better and you have to get your ass back on that court in order to consider yourself the best in the league right now, especially this season, because it's so hard to know who's good and who isn't when all these stats are just being overwhelmingly shoved down our throats as if they're supposed to constitute the ability of someone's contributions to their team and the outcome of their success. Because success is not absolute. Nobody knows what it is in the NBA anymore. We just had Kevin Durant go to Brooklyn and basically defend himself saying, it was a success, look at all that I did. You didn't do anything, okay, when you were with the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets were the single most catastrophic formation of talent the National Basketball Association has ever seen. Nothing happened with Harden, Durant, and Kyrie. Nothing happened, okay? You lost to the Bucks in 7. You got swept by the Celtics, and Harden, Durant, and Kyrie only played 16 points together, or 16 games together. That's it, okay? And players think that constitutes success because a few things might have happened. Like what happened? I'm trying to imagine, because Kevin Durant hasn't been to an All-Star game since 2019, okay? And the only reason you got 50, 40, 90 last season was because you shot over 50% from 3 when you were with the Suns for a very short portion of the season, starting on February 9th. So we're not even there yet. We're not even at the 1-year hallelujah celebration. By the way, you were injured when you got traded to the Suns. So nullify all of that, okay? I'm a Kevin Durant fan. You know I'm a Kevin Durant fan. I've got his KD 12s in my closet. I've got multiple T-shirts of his. But stop talking, okay, and defend yourself and think about how self-righteous you are. You didn't, okay? Just forget about it, okay? Let's just move on, okay? I want the Suns to win this year. I think the Suns and the Knicks are going to be in the finals. Let's just relax here, okay? Let's move on past our egos. Let's stop thinking that we're right all the time. Oh, look at me, I'm just doing it right now. I'm thinking that I'm right. I don't know how to back that other than what's before me as a fan. And all fans feel a similar attitude towards players that just get on their high horse and act like they're better than everybody. At least fans, no matter who we cheer for, we all have that in common. But besides the point, regardless, because there's a lot more important things that are happening. And hey, just make it to this All-Star. Make it to this All-Star game, please. And then over in the National Football League, we've got a lot of coaches coming and going, in and out, lickety-splickety. And one of the biggest surprises for me was Pete Carroll getting let go. And the Seahawks, their direction has been a concern of mine for quite a while now. Looking back at, I would say, Russell Wilson's last season with the Seahawks, I was definitely skeptical that they had the right offensive direction. And I don't know how much of it is to blame on Pete Carroll. Because now here we are, Mike McDonald is the head coach. But he was a defensive coordinator. So now he's got the next 7 months to plan how he's going to run his coaching methods as the defensive guy. But he's going to be whatever he's dabbling in, whatever side of the offense he's dabbling in as the head coach. What is that going to look like? Because I feel like Pete Carroll was a very offensive-minded guy. And I'm sure a lot of Seahawks fans will back up that, especially after how terribly they played against the LA Rams in Week 1 when they just couldn't defend a lick. So all of that is going to have to transpire. All of that is going to have to convince us that this was the right move, the right decision. We know he can coach a defense. That's great, you know. You can coach the defense of the Ravens, but the defense of the Ravens, they're not the defense of Seattle. And there's going to be a lot of expectations for a team that can contend and make the playoffs and do something. But they've just been so ineffective recently, and I don't think that's just from losing their superstar. I think if they still had Russell Wilson, who isn't a superstar anymore, he used to be. He used to be the guy that was the difference maker. But now I just don't think that the Seahawks are any worse without him. And a lot of the trades have proved dividends. When you have a defensive mind like Mike and like Dan Quinn, you're not so certain how this is going to mesh towards the offense. Of course, you're going to need an offensive coordinator, and the Seahawks are going to have to explore what that's going to look like with a defensive-minded head coach. But it can be done. It can be done, and we've seen this from Dan Quinn already. So we've got Washington. He's now the Washington Commanders head coach. But they got to sort out what kind of a team they are because their defense isn't exactly formidable. I mean, their team is kind of just in the ripples right now. Eventually, they're going to hit a wall or hit a rock, and we don't know much about them or their identity. We don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be because Sam Howell was really good and really bad at times. So there's a lot of moving parts. But I think that Dan Quinn should have stayed with the Cowboys because he was at the height of his game. They showed him a lot. We got to see Dan Quinn a lot because their defense was so good during the regular season. It was a similar situation to what Mike McDonald is getting because the Seahawks are like, okay, we want this guy. Even though the success wasn't proven fully, it wasn't completely matured because of how the playoffs ended. But at the same time, maybe it is going to be a better deal with Mike McDonald. And the Baltimore defense, they were just spectacular. And there's nothing against Dan Quinn's defense. I'm pretty sure if he stayed with the Cowboys, he would have done an excellent job as well, and it would have been proven. I just think that he was at the height of his game, and it was really effective, and he was doing such a great job. It looked like he was the greatest defensive mind in the league last season, up until that game against Green Bay, where you're going to get burned because it just looked like the defense was responsible for a lot. Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to look like that. But as far as the defensive mind now goes towards the Cowboys, it's like you're shaking things up there, but what kind of substitution are you making? Because you're removing Dan Quinn. He got an offer from the Commanders, and they are moving on. They're moving with him as their guy. And that is quite surprising to me. A lot of coordinators getting jobs now. And then we got Vrabel, we got Carroll, we got Belichick just not involved in the mix here. It's very interesting, very odd. Did not expect that. Especially with all these coordinators proving they can do multiple things, including head coach. So we're going to be getting to the Super Bowl a little bit more. Monday, we're going to be talking about it. I'm going to be talking to Josh and Mo. We're going to be doing our Super Bowl show. We've done 2 in a row now. I did one with Muhammad in 2022. And then last year I had them both on the show, so we're going to be kicking it off, getting right into all of that. It's going to be great. Getting our predictions in and expectations, as well as reacting to the AFC and the NFC championship games. Not a whole lot there from my end. I'm getting over a sickness, so I wasn't able to really do a whole lot. But by the weekend, I was a little bit better. I just couldn't really speak. You know, you got to talk into this microphone. But yeah, and then there's going to be another break after the Super Bowl, so I'm going to try and get my reaction in then, but it's going to be hard to tell. So either way, it's all coming in.